Hello, 5th graders. Welcome to lesson 6.9, Practice Addition and Subtraction. Please pause to write the lesson number and title in your notebook. Today's lesson objective is to solve problems using the strategy work backwards. Please pause to write the objective in your notebook. Let's begin by reading the Unlock the Problem. The Diaz family is cross-country skiing in the Big Tree Trails, which have a total length of 4 miles. Yesterday, they skied the 7/10 mile of the Oak Trail. Today, they skied the 3/5 mile Pine Trail. If they plan to ski all of the Big Tree Trails, how many more miles do they have left to ski? Let's use our graphic organizer underneath to figure out what we know and how we're going to use it. So in our problem, they tell us here that we need to know how many more miles they have left to ski. So we need to find the distance they have left to ski. Okay, and what we need to know is we need to use the total distance that they have already gone and the distance they plan to go. So we need to use the distance they have already skied and the total distance they plan to ski. And we are going to work backwards by using the total and we're going to subtract what they have already skied to find out what's left over. So we are going to subtract. So that's where we're going to get that work backwards piece, as we're going to start with the total and then we're going to subtract what we already know to find out what's missing, what they have left. Make sure you have everything that's written on this page because the next slide has the bottom half of the page. Alright, 5th graders, addition and subtraction are inverse operations. By working backwards and using the same numbers, one operation can undo the other. So let's write an equation to find out what we already know. So the miles that they skied yesterday. Well, they told us that the miles that they skied yesterday was 7/10 of a mile on the Oak Trail. And then it says the miles they skied today. Today they skied the Pine Trail, which was 3/5. And then if we add all of these together, we're going to get the total distance of 4. But we need to figure out what this m is, what the difference that we're missing. So instead of subtracting these numbers, we're actually going to add them, and then we're going to subtract in the end. So we're going to subtract 4 minus 7/10 minus 3/5 to find out what's left over. I'm going to write up above. If you have space to the side, you can write to the side. Let's write them with a common denominator. So we have 4 minus, let's go ahead and go with 10. So 7/10 minus 3/5. So in order to make a 5 into a 10, we have to multiply by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And I want to add these two parts together before we subtract. So 7 plus 6 gives me 13/10. So I'm going to rewrite this as 4 minus 13/10. Now we can borrow and find out how we're going to subtract. So 4 minus 1 gives me 3 and 10/10. And that's actually not even enough. So let's borrow again and make this into a 2 and 20/10. So 20 minus 13 is 7/10. And 2 minus, there's no whole number at the end, so 2 minus nothing is 2. So that means they have 2 7/10 left still to ski. So let's decide if our answer is reasonable or not. And let's add to do that. So if we have 2 7/10 plus 7/10 plus 6/10, let's see if it gets us to a total of 4. So 7 plus 7 is 14, plus 6 gives us 20/10, and 2 20/10, well, 10 goes into 20 twice, so that means I really have 2 plus 2, which is 4, which is what we were trying to get to. So I know my answer is reasonable because when I add them all back up together, I get my original answer back out. Great job, 5th graders! Now it's your turn to try a word problem, subtraction with fractions. It says, Thelma spent 1/6 of her weekly allowance on dog toys, 1/4 on a dog collar, and 1/3 on dog food. What fraction of her allowance is left? So let's rename these all to a common denominator before we know what we're going to do with them. So we have 4 and 6 and 3. So let's rename them all to 12. So if I'm going to make 1/6 into a 12, in order to make 6 into 12, I have to multiply by 2. And on the top, I have a 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. So she spent 2/12 on dog toys. Then she spent 1/4 on a dog collar. In order to make a 4 into a 12, I have to multiply by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. And then she spent 1/3 on dog food. So in order to change a 3 into a 12, we have to multiply by 4. 1 times 4 is 4. And in order to know what she has left, we need to know what she spent. So we're going to add these and see what she spent. So 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 2 is 9/12. So at the beginning of the week, if she had her whole allowance, we could call that 12/12. And she has spent 9/12. So what does she have left? You can finish this problem in your math notebook today and be prepared to share it at the teacher table. Great job, 5th graders!